On the back of Spargo's Collision 2024 win, I want to talk about the end of an era. And it's a little bit surprising to say that after Spargo won, considering he was part of this old era, which was dubbed the Four Horsemen of Ultimate. For those of you that are unaware of what the Four Horsemen era was, the second half of 2023 was run by 4 players in the meta. Of course, there are a bunch of upsets in the middle, but every single major tournament besides one of them was won by 4 players: Akola, Mia, Spargo, and Sonics. And it's crazy that I'm not exaggerating at all. Starting July 1st, the literal second half of the year, Sabugeki 12, Akola, and then Mia won, Sonics, Spargo, Akola, Spargo, Gluttony, the one tournament that I mentioned that was won by a non-Four Horsemen player, and Gluttony was ranked 5th on the Lumi rank, so he was literally right under them. And then continuing, Mia, Akola, Mia, Spargo, Akola, Sonics, Gluttony once more, Mia, Spargo, Sonics, Mia. That is an insane level of consistency for those 4 players. Of course, they are still probably the 4 best players in the world, but things are a little different in 2024. This was leading to obviously incredibly, not stale, but repetitive top 4s, because a lot of the times it was literally, if all 4 players were there, it was a combination of those 4 players, barring like SmashCon, which had some major upsets where Dabuz ended up getting second. But a lot of the tournaments, especially when all 4 of them were there, were like first place Spargo, second place Mia, third place Sonics, fourth place Akola. Like all of them had each other, and then the level of consistency that those 4 players had in bracket was incredible. I don't think Akola has been knocked into losers bracket earlier than winner semis in like a year, including like just smaller tournaments, like not locals, but just like smaller, like non-major tournaments. He's incredibly consistent. Mia rarely gets upset. Sonics and Spargo, of course, very consistent. They have, a couple of times that they got upset, mostly SmashCon. Spargo losing to LY, and then Sonics losing to Icy Mist, I think it was. So those players are incredibly consistent overall, and we expected to see more of this in 2024. I mean, people consider Game & Watch, Sonic, and Steve the 3 best characters in the game, and Cloud not too far behind them, somewhere in the top 10, and these players were just amazing and incredibly consistent. Spargo was picking up Corrin to deal with this issue that he has with Sonic. Mia has a couple of secondaries, most notably the Steve and recently the Mii Sword Fighter, although I think that's more for fun than for serious bracket stuff. And Akola, of course, he doesn't lose to anyone other than like the top 5 players. But going into 2024, we had a bit of a shift already. There have been, I'm counting them, 8 different majors already, and the story is completely different. As I showed, the last 6 months of 2023, 2 tournaments weren't won by the Four Horsemen, and they were both by Gluttony, who was the number 5 player in the world. So let's take a look at 2024's tournaments. So the last tournament I actually mentioned in 2023 is still counting technically for this next season, where Mia won in Delta number 7, but then we have Genesis X and Umebura SP10, both P-tier tournaments. We have Kowloon 9, Luminosity Makes Moves, and Collision as super majors, and then we have King Kong, Cirque du CFL 3, and the Invitational 2, as well as Delta number 7. And I think every single one of these tournaments had at least one member of the Four Horsemen there. Genesis had 3, Umebura had at least 2 of them, being Akola and Mia. Same for Kowloon number 9. Luminosity Makes Moves had the 2 North American ones in terms of Sonics and Spargo, and let's see what happened. Suddenly, if you look at the winners of the tournaments, you see a lot less of those big 4. Luminosity Makes Moves was won by Tweak, Umebura was won by Akola, Kowloon was won by Mia, and Collision was won by Spargo, but every other tournament in between, including the biggest tournament of the year so far, Genesis X, was not won by a member of the Four Horsemen. Genesis being won by Zamba, King Kong being won by Leo, Invitational 2 being won by Light, and Cirque du CFL 3 being won by Shattuck. And the thing about all these tournaments up here is not necessarily every single member of the Four Horsemen was going to all these tournaments, but they would still end up winning anyway, and if 2 of them were there, they often landed in grand finals, and if more than 3 or 4 of them appeared, it was basically 3 or 4 of them in the top 4. And down here we've had multiple of the Four Horsemen show up, and yet they aren't winning, right? Mia, Spargo, and Sonics were at Genesis, and they didn't win, courtesy of Zomba's victory and Mia losing to Raflo, as well as, I forget who he lost to in losers? Zachary. Zachary, my goat. And we're immediately seeing a shift of just the less dominance of these players. Of course, not to say that they're doing bad, right? Genesis, second and third place were Sonics and Spargo. King Kong, second place was Spargo. Invitational 2, second place was Mia. Cirque du CFL 3, the highest member of the Four Horsemen, and the only one that was there was Mia, who got 7th at that tournament. So this one was probably the worst placement of them. And then, of course, Spargo won this event. Sonics got second at Let's Make Moves 2024. Sorry, Luminosity Makes Moves. And then the other ones were won by Akola and Mia, right? So they're still doing incredibly well. They are still probably the top 4 players in the world. If you were to like talk to most people, considering they're still doing very, very well. But the shift in the meta is already immediately noticeable. What could be causing that? Well, let's talk about some theories. First off, I would say that Akola simply isn't going to as much. He did not go to Genesis, and he would have almost assuredly been in like winner's side top 8, because again, he doesn't really lose to anyone outside of the top 4, and he probably wouldn't have had to play them. So that is going to be the first thing, because Akola's still winning most of the tournaments that he goes to, or at least getting into grand finals. I mean, even the major that Mia won in Kowloon 9 at Sumabato, Akola wasn't there. So Akola not going to these things definitely made a little bit more of an ability for other people to get into the winner's top 8, or, you know, the upsets to actually matter and make it into top 8 or top 3 for some of these players, including like Shattuck at Cirque du CFL 2. And also he got second at, Shattuck is incredible. I'll talk about him later at a different time. But that's definitely part of it. But the thing is, people have been having to put in so much effort into learning the counterplay to not even these 4 characters, but these 4 players. I mean, if you are taking the game seriously and you want to win a major, you have to be studying your most likely opponents in the top 8. And who are those going to be? The 4 most consistent players in the world: Sonics, Spargo, Akola, and Mia. And that's simply how it is. A lot of the players in this game are grinders, not necessarily in terms of tech skill, but in terms of VOD review and studying. A lot of the top players simply just learn each other's habits and try to expose them. And you can really see that in a lot of the gameplay of these top 8 games, where just they're losing. People are losing to their habits, and everyone has habits no matter how good of a player or character you are playing. No character or player is invincible in this game, even though the Four Horsemen made it look like that at the end of 2023 because they were the only ones winning everything. Another thing going on is the fact that people are simply studying the other characters so much more. The amount of people that have like precise Game & Watch counterplay now has gotten a lot higher because Game & Watch is so prevalent in the meta because of Mia and Meister to a different extent, but like obviously people are focusing on the people that are always in like top 2. Again, no shade to Meister, literally just Mia's crazy, right? People are trying to pay more attention to Sonics and Sonic as a character and learn those, you know, weaknesses of the differences of spin dash and spin charge, where his disadvantage may be lacking, you know, and then of course in combination with the player habits that I mentioned earlier, people are going to be able to get very strong punishes on things like homing attack, or be able to edge guard him, or be able to just get out of the flowchart a little bit better. Like there will always be room to learn character counterplay, and where you cannot really learn character counterplay, or it's too complex to deal with, like parrying cloud back air versus an empty jump, you know, side B or something like that, and it's kind of hard to be like, I'll parry it every time when the other player can just choose not to, then people go to the player counterplay and just be like, okay, well, I understand your patterns and your habits, and so the combination of those is forcing a lot of people to get a lot better against these Four Horsemen. The skill of the players that are winning these majors that aren't, you know, the Four Horsemen is of course fantastic. We all know Tweak is an amazing player, Zomba is an amazing player, Leo is Leo, Light is Light, and Shattuck is probably the most, like, you know, he is just getting so high in the results. Top 8 at Genesis, winning Cirque du CFL, got 3rd at the Lit Invitational, got 2nd at Collision. He's been on a crazy trajectory these last like 2 months, and he was already doing well in 2023, but like even better now. And just, it is incredible to see the state of Ultimate right now. They're not being dominated by any character or any player. The players that were dominating are just like losing a little bit more frequently, or just, you know, they're getting surprise, you know, opponents that are doing really well versus them, and it is amazing to see. And we're not seeing any level of dominance even from the people that are winning these tournaments anyway. Like Zomba, after his trash talk at Genesis, got 5th at Cirque du CFL 3 to Mutace and Peebnut, and those sets weren't close. He didn't get top 8 at Collision. You know, Light is still doing well. I mean, he got top 8 at Genesis, won the Invitational 2, you know, but didn't get top 8 at Cirque du CFL 3 and got 5th, I think, at Collision. Tweak, who won Luminosity Makes Big Moves 2024, you know, made top 8 at Genesis, I think got 4th losing to Sonics, but at the same time didn't make top 8 at Collision just because of how hard these brackets are, which again kind of goes to prove the talent and the skill of the 4 players that were just winning literally everything in 2023, because Ultimate is a hard and inconsistent game, and to make it look anything other than that is sheer dominance by those players. But right now we have a very healthy meta with literally different characters winning every single every single major, except maybe, you know, considering that Mia has a Steve secondary, maybe you can say 2 Steves are here, but Diddy Kong, Steve, Game & Watch, Rob, Joker, Fox, Corrin, and Cloud. We have a huge variety of characters, we have a huge variety of play styles, and it has been so fun to watch. I am loving the state of Smash Ultimate right now. Again, I enjoyed the Four Horsemen era, even though top 4s would sometimes get boring, but just like the sheer level of skill that those players had is incredible. And right now we have more of a varied playing field than ever, because realistically we went from like Leo winning everything and then would occasionally not win to like the post-quarantine era where it was still mostly Leo and Spargo winning, and then Akola was winning in Japan. And now, like, currently we have the most varied champions that we've had in a long time. I mean, in 3 months we've had, what is it, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 majors this year, and we have had 1 repeat winner in Mia, and otherwise there have been 8 other players, and Sonics hasn't even won one, and he's one of the members of the Four Horsemen. So this is a crazy time to be a Smash Ultimate fan. Steve or no Steve legal at these tournaments. It has been incredible. Let me know what else you want me to talk about in the comments down below, and subscribe while you're down there. I would appreciate it, and thank you all for watching. Stride partner stuff is down below, and I'll see you all next time. Peace.